Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Learnings with me, Ben Ibrahim. Thank you so much for supporting my show, and please continue to support my show by clicking the like button and the subscribe button so I can continue, shall I say, to grow Sunday Learnings and also continue to get quality guests to come on the show to inspire us all and also make us better learners. Today, we're going to be talking about the topic sustaining success the Liverpool way with the one and only John Barnes. For those of you who are unaware who John Barnes is, John played for Liverpool in the late 80s and the 90s, won multiple championships, not just domestically, but internationally as well. Played 314 games for Liverpool and scored 84 goals, played for England, and he's just a great all-round ambassador for football. I had the privilege of working with John for one episode when I was at Fox Sports, and we covered the Manchester United-Liverpool game. Unfortunately, his Liverpool that day did not win, but he was very much a pundit and had nothing to do with the outcome of that game. And that was the time when Louis van Gaal was coaching Manchester United, and Liverpool were very much rebuilding to the point where they are today. So, John, welcome to Sunday Learnings. Thank you so much for being with me. And how have you been?
I've been very good. And of course, you are now not able to say that I played for the last team to win the league, which is what people have been saying for the last 30 years. So thankfully, we can't say that anymore.
But John, let's talk about the topic sustaining success and the Liverpool way, the way you guys did it. Because in the 80s, when you joined the club in 1987 from Watford, you came so close to winning a championship with Watford, and it was called the championship back then. But as they say, close but no cigar. And then you joined Liverpool. And it was magic. It was like a fairy tale story. But tell us, when you got to Liverpool from Watford, what was the pressure that was placed upon you when you got to the club?
Well, there was no pressure on me. Interestingly, when you talk about sustaining success and you say Liverpool have been successful this year, they have sustained the success of last year. As funny as that may seem, they won the Champions League and they finished second in the league on 97 points and lost one game. That is success. As much as it was a fantastic Manchester City side who got more points than them, Liverpool have had a 2-year period of success because no one can tell me finishing second on 97 points and losing one league game is failure. So what they've done is they've continued that. So to go back to your original question, there was no pressure on me whatsoever when I came to Liverpool. The pressure was on Liverpool Football Club to continue and sustain the success that they've had in the previous 10 years. Don't forget, throughout the 80s, Liverpool had won the league 4 or 5 times. Everton, funnily enough, had won it twice. And in the 80s, Everton and Liverpool were the 2 top teams, but there was always pressure on Liverpool to maximize their potential and to win the league. So when I came, there wasn't pressure on me. There was more pressure on the players who had been there before. They'd seen it, they'd done it, they'd been through the Liverpool way. They've grown up in the Liverpool way. Ian Rush, Alan Hansen, Jan Molby, the players who've been there and done it. So the pressure was on them. And for me to become a part of that, I was like a newbie. I was like an apprentice. As much as I was playing for England, myself and Peter Beardsley were high-profile England internationals who had come, but the pressure was on the team, particularly with the experienced players, to continue that success, and we added to that. So there wasn't undue pressure on myself, but I quickly learned that if you're going to be a Liverpool player, you have to be able to handle that pressure of the success being thrust onto the team, not on me personally.
What was the steepest learning curve? Because you weren't exactly a rookie or an apprentice. You were around 23, 24 years old. What was the steepest learning curve in joining the club back then?
The steepest learning curve was buying into the Liverpool traditions. Yes, you're bringing to Liverpool your ability, your experience, your quality, but more importantly, you have to adapt to what Liverpool want. Because no matter how good you think you are, Liverpool is better than you. So if you're going to say, I'm going to come to Liverpool and I'm going to do what I want to do because I'm John Barnes and this is what I did at Watford, and I've already been playing for England 30-odd times, you have to understand that Liverpool is greater than you. So you have to become a Liverpool player. Yes, you can adapt, to become a Liverpool player, but you can't impose your will on Liverpool, no matter who you are. Lionel Messi coming to Liverpool won't be able to impose Lionel Messi's style on Liverpool. He'd have to add to that by succumbing, being subservient to the Liverpool way. And I suppose what Liverpool always did in the past was they looked at players who could fit into the Liverpool way. You didn't have to be the best player. You had to have the right character, the right adaptability, the right humility to understand that Liverpool is more important. So I use Glenn Hoddle as an example, my favorite English player of all time, technically. He could never have been a Liverpool player. Not that he's not better than Sammy Lee or Terry McDermott. It's not a question of being better. It's a question of them understanding what the Liverpool way is. Whereas Glenn was a great individual player. And as I said, it's not right or wrong. It's understanding what's right for Liverpool. And which is what they do now. Because you can argue that Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva are better than Gini Wijnaldum and Jordan Henderson. But Gini Wijnaldum and Jordan Henderson have won the league 20-odd points better than those two. So it's not about the individual. It's about buying into what Liverpool expect from you. So Liverpool saw that in you even when you played for your other club. They saw your adaptability. They saw your character. They knew that you could fit into what they wanted. Ray Houghton came to Liverpool. He was not a superstar player, but at Liverpool he turned into one of the great players. So Liverpool saw things in you that you didn't know you had in yourself, and that was the greatest quality that Liverpool had, because they didn't coach you. We did no coaching whatsoever. They didn't work on tactics, but they knew that you had the experience and the quality and the intelligence to be a Liverpool player, even if you didn't know it yourself.
Wow, it must have been a very interesting recruitment drive when looking for new talent.
Well, it was, but you see, that's what happened from Bill Shankly's time, who then passed it upon to Ronnie Moran, to Roy Evans, who'd been there all the time with him. They knew what a Liverpool player was. And that is what Jurgen Klopp's doing now. Because Jurgen Klopp isn't looking for the next best £100 million player. That's not what's important. He's looking for a player who would have wanted Fabinho, for example. The top people weren't great in Fabinho. He's looking for a player who could fit into what he wants, regardless of what other people think about him. And that's the best recruitment policy, to buy a player who suits what you want. Not the next best player who's playing so well for his club that you may feel, well, let's get him because he's great for his club. It has to be, can he fit into what the team wants? You,
not just you, John, but Liverpool players in general, whether they were young or whether they were aging or whether they were in the mature stage of their respective careers. Let's talk about pressure, mental health, and stress. I mean, how did players back then deal with that sort of thing? There was no social media. There was the culture of not many people wanting to see a sports psychologist or outside help. It was very, very school of hard knocks sort of stuff. So maybe you could share with us how you and your teammates, your friends, you don't have to mention names, you can mention names, how they dealt with that kind of thing.
Well, you have to look at the time. I played from 1981 at Watford all the way through to 1997 at Liverpool. And up until the early 90s, maybe even the mid 90s, you don't have the support that you have now. Because I'm sure there would have been players who would have had issues, mentally and otherwise. And while they get the support now and they get the time, they get the help, they get the understanding, back then you wouldn't have that. You would not have made it. If you weren't tough enough to take whatever was thrown at you, be it injuries, be it racism, be it hard knocks, be it criticism, be it what people now would call bullying. If you couldn't put up with that, you wouldn't make it. So Liverpool wasn't different to anywhere else. There was no football club. There was no industry. There's nothing in England whereby if you weren't strong and you weren't had the typically stiff upper lip, British mentality, that if things come your way, it's hard and people are going to abuse you no matter what happens. If you can't fight against that by yourself and deal with it yourself, you are not going to be a successful human being. So of course, now we've come full circle whereby people have got the support. They have, you can come and you can talk about issues. But back then, as I said, between 1980 all the way up to 1980, from the last 200-300 years, it's not as if what we're going through now was there 100 years ago and then it wasn't there and now it's here again. This is really a very modern feature of life, not just of football, of life. So until I would even say the 1996, 97 even, you didn't have these, people had these issues, and a lot of people would have been lost to the game of football, like in industry, like in anything else, because they weren't able to handle that themselves. So we're in a much better place now, whereby if people do have issues, they have problems, they're able to talk to it, even at football clubs. Managers are more understanding, fans are more understanding, society's more understanding. Back then, it wasn't like that at all.
Now, John, you spoke about character and the characteristics that you guys look for, more characteristics than individual skills, like the Glenn Hoddles of this world. But tell us about the team, the ego, the technical swagger, that belief. I mean, you guys were extremely hard to beat.
Yeah.
Part of the tradition of Liverpool, where did that come from and how did you build that?
But as much as football is a team game, it's a team game made up of individuals. And while the biggest ego has to be the team ego, you have little egos within that. But what that can't override, whatever ego you have, be it Ian Rush, Alan Hansen, John Barnes, whoever, that cannot supersede the team ethic and the team ego. That changes in football. Because no matter what people want to say, Ronaldo's ego is bigger than Real Madrid's ego. And Messi's ego is bigger than Barcelona's ego. And that's the feature of modern football, whereby we in many respects, Steven Gerrard's was bigger than Liverpool's at that particular time when Liverpool weren't particularly successful. Luis Suarez. And that comes from the fans putting more onus and giving individual players more importance than the team by saying to these individual players, you are more important than the team. So therefore, we would say Steven Gerrard is more important than Lucas. Whereas when I played, John Barnes wasn't more important than Barry Venison. Regardless of the way the fans saw it, the way I saw it was he's as important as I am. Forget about the praise I get from the fans and they may say he's no good. But I understand for us to be successful, we need all 11. When you're in a team sport, it's much more, the most important thing, the only way you can get success is if the team wins. In modern games, individuals can get success if the team doesn't win. Because if a player scores 4 goals in the game, he's going to get sponsorship, he's going to get a lot of money, he's going to get a lot of kudos from the fans, but the team lost 5-4. But he's been successful. That couldn't happen in the old days. And I'll use Ian Rush as an example. Ian Rush never scored against Manchester United for 10 years. But he was winning the league and the European Cup every year, so it didn't matter to Ian Rush. A modern player would say, I'd much rather score against Man United and lose 4-3, but I've scored all 3 goals, and I can get success, than we winning 4-0 or 1-0 and I don't score. So the ego always had to be the team ego. And that's what I'm talking about. The club looking at the character of the players to know these are the kind of players we want. Yes, you have your individual ego, but you have to, the most important thing has to be the team.
Off the field, back then also, the pub culture was still very, very much part of English football. I mean, in the 90s, you hear about the Arsene Wengers of this world bringing in sports science and stopping the pub culture. But tell us about the pub culture back then and its challenges.
Well, first of all, it was a culture in England. It also was in football. You know, people in England went out and got drunk. Then they had a fight in the pub, and then they went to work. And it's very much like what we spoke about in terms of mental health issues and in terms of support, in terms of no excuses. So while at Liverpool, like England, like all football clubs, you did used to go out. I was the big drinker. You know, I used to go out. I used to like to party, but I was the big drinker. But footballers are big drinkers. However, the club and the manager wouldn't mind. You do what you want. You want to go out and drink, you go out and drink. However, when you come to work, and work isn't on a Saturday at 3 o'clock when you play matches. Work is training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 10 o'clock. You perform. No excuses. So you can't have a hangover. You can't say, I'm not feeling well because whatever. You performed. So they allowed you to live your life, but there were no excuses. And if you can perform after a night out or after whatever you did, very much like if you can't perform after being bullied, like now, or after, you know, being abused on Twitter, if you can't perform because of the attitude back then, is you're no good to us and you won't make it. So to answer your question, yes, there was a big drinking culture. However, while there was a big drinking culture in England and in Europe, it never was that way. Arsene Wenger, the Italians, they were always eating pasta, eating properly. You know, the Germans, they were always very disciplined. In the 70s and 80s, the best teams in Europe were the English teams. Liverpool won the European Cup, Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest. So that culture of, you would say, non-professionalism, because they're not living their lives like professional athletes should, they were the most successful teams because they had that character and the determination, that drive, and there are no excuses. So it needed to change because life was changing. And Arsene Wenger came and he changed it, because what happened was, particularly in England, was that once one team changed that attitude in terms of the diet, the nutrition, the psychology, the drinking, everybody had to change, because if one team changed and everyone else did, that one team who changed would be the most successful team. So Arsene Wenger was the first to come and do that at Arsenal. Sir Alex Ferguson tried it at Manchester United, then Gerard Houllier came. So he changed a real British culture for the better, in my opinion. Okay.
But thanks for sharing that. Really, really insightful. But I mean, you don't have to mention any names. You can't mention names. I really leave it up to you. You know, it always makes good banter and good stories, especially at the pub. But back then, was there anybody in the team or in the squad who tried to impose their values or their non-drinking values or their conservative values on players who were more relaxed, who would have a drink, have a cigarette, you know, and they would really
Peter,
into the...
no, look, get into them. It's the other way around. Peter Beardsley didn't drink. And in many respects, Peter Beardsley was ostracized because he didn't drink. Not just by the players, by the staff. You know, because running around and because it was like, you know, if you don't drink, they don't trust you. So I felt so sorry for Peter because Peter didn't drink. And he was ostracized by a lot of the players because he wasn't one of the lads, even the staff. Because this is what it was. It was about the camaraderie, the togetherness. We're all going out together, so we're all going to get drunk together. We're all going to have a fight together. And if you're not part of that, and you say, no, we're professionals, we shouldn't be doing that, you were the one who was ostracized, not the other way around. So you couldn't instill your way on them because this was the culture in England. And as I said, not just with Liverpool or in football, it's like, you know, if you're in England, you're not a footballer, you're just a normal human being. The thing is, let's go to the pub and get drunk. And if you don't, there's something wrong with you. So, you know, I think we've come full circle now for us to understand that that is really not the way it should have been, but that is the way it was. So, I mean, look at Stephen Nicol, Ian Rush, Jan, everybody did it. As I said, I was there with them. I'm not a big drinker because I can't drink. And of course, you know, in England, it's a big beer culture. I don't drink beer, I drink wine. So I was there till 4 and 5 in the morning, obviously with them drinking a little glass of wine. But to fit in, it's the other way around. To fit in, you had to drink. Sometimes I had to pretend to be drunk, even if I wasn't, just to fit in.
The stories. Liverpool went through that slight dip in the 90s because of a change of tradition.
Yes. No. Yeah. Too quickly. Too quickly. It should have been gradual. And the gradual change went back, because don't forget, while the Liverpool way was going to evolve, because football was evolving, because of course, you say Sir Alex Ferguson. Sir Alex Ferguson went to Manchester United in 1985. They didn't win the Premier League until 1992, 93. So he was there for 6 years without winning. No manager's going to go 6 years without winning and not get fired. So he was fortunate because he still wasn't successful at first, but they stuck with it because that was an evolution. Whereas for Liverpool, because we didn't necessarily need to change, there was a lot of resistance to that change. It was always going to be more difficult for Liverpool, and it should have been more gradual than other clubs. It didn't need to change, but it should have been more gradual with other clubs. And if it was more gradual, we still would have been able to maintain a certain level of wanting to win, first or second, not being a top 14. But then, because it happened so quickly for Liverpool, it can happen for other clubs, because other clubs needed something to happen radically for them to catch Liverpool. Liverpool didn't need anything radical to stay at the top. It needed little tweaking to stay at the top, but we didn't need radical change. Man United needed radical change. Arsenal needed radical change, which is what they got. And that helped them. Radical change didn't help us.
The John Barnes way, in terms of your winning mentality, in terms of how you approach continuous improvement, to improve yourself constantly, especially as you got older.
Your preparation is the most important thing. Because, and I say that to my kids, it's just like life. I say to my kids, you know, when you take an exam, you don't pass the exam on the day you take it. You pass the exam in the preparation leading up to it. When you take that exam and those questions come up, how do you know those answers? Because you have prepared, and the preparedness is a repetition of studying. The repetition. That comes from football as well. When we love Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, and we see what they do on a Saturday or whenever they play the match, that's not when they do it. They do it in their preparation, in the training that they do it. The ethic, the work ethic, and the training that they actually put in Monday to Friday to allow them to perform. So the preparation is the most important thing. So with me, as a young player at Watford, as a young boy growing up with my mum and dad, all they said was, yes, you prepare, which means you're committed to work. Every day in training, every day at school, as much as I didn't do my work at school too often. I didn't understand the philosophy behind it, but I just wanted to go and play football. But my football, and this I learned it at Watford, because Graham Taylor, every single day in training, was on at you to maximize your potential. You have to give the complete, not only determination and effort, concentration in what you're actually doing. And that is what all the best players do. Yes, you have natural footballers, but natural footballers who don't put that work in every single day, that work ethic. The work ethic is the most important thing. And the humility to understand that we're in a team sport, so therefore you have to appreciate, recognize what the team function is, what your role is within that team. You can't be more superior to the other players. As I said, I'm no important than Barry Venison or Gary Ablett who played behind me. And having that humility and that reverence to football or to your craft, whatever it is, rather than your own individual ego that tells you how great you are, because that's what fans are going to tell you. And if you buy into what fans tell you and you believe that, you will think you're better than your club, better than your teammates. So my philosophy has always been one of humility, first and foremost, into something greater than you, which is the game of football, which is your team, and your work ethic.
This current Liverpool team, obviously Premier League champions, it's a different day compared to your time. Do you think they can go on like you guys did and achieve long-term sustainable success?
Once again, I said we finished second last year, 97 points, lost one game, and we're the Champions League. That is success. So if you finish second next year on 103 points, and we finish second, but we won the league this year 99 points, are we more successful than when we won? That's arguable. That's arguable. So it depends on what you say success is. Success for me is maximizing your potential, yeah, and getting as close as you can to the top. The problem you have now is because of the financial implications of football, which didn't happen in the past. What happened in the past was clubs had to work organically to try and catch Liverpool. So Liverpool at the top, Everton, Man, all of these teams had to work organically to try and catch Liverpool. Now, if Manchester City say we're going to buy Messi, then we're going to buy Ronaldo, then we're going to buy Manuel Neuer, they could beat Liverpool next year. So it's much harder now to sustain that success, because other clubs at any given time, because of the financial power that's coming into football, can then say, and it can be any club, Wolverhampton Wanderers could be bought by the richest man in the world and buy the best players and beat Liverpool next year. So, but all I can say for Liverpool, when you talk about sustaining success, is to maximize your potential. And you can't ask anything better. To sum up my philosophy on what success is, when I talk about maximizing your potential, if I'm going to run against Usain Bolt, we know who Usain Bolt is. My best time in the 100 meters, and it's not now, but if I was to say, my best time is 12 seconds. Yes? Usain Bolt's best time is 9.5. I run against Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt beats me by 20 yards. I do 11.9 seconds. Usain Bolt does 10.5 seconds. Usain Bolt has beaten me. But he's 1 second off his fastest time, and I beat my best time. I'm more successful. Because all you can do is maximize your own potential. So, and that's what I said. That's why this Liverpool team has maximized its potential to the fullest to win. Man City didn't maximize the potential, because if they did, they wouldn't be 25 points behind Liverpool. Man United wouldn't have been 30 points behind. Arsenal wouldn't. So you can't ask someone to beat somebody else. All you can ask them is to maximize their potential and do as well as they can. And if other teams underachieve, then that's not our fault. You cannot overachieve in life. You can only maximize your potential. And people underachieve. So when someone says, oh, he overachieved, it's impossible to overachieve. All you can do is maximize your potential. And that is what we have done. Last year, 97 points, finishing second. This year, 99 points. And next year, we'll do the same. So if we maximize our potential next year, and Manchester City maximize their potential, Manchester City will beat us. True. If they maximize the potential in what they have. Right. But that's not what life is. Because some people underachieve, and Man City underachieve. And all we can ask Liverpool to do is to maximize their potential. And I have no worries that is what they'll do. And if they do that, they'll get close to winning.
Now, John, just to wrap up this wonderful, wonderful sharing and interview, I would like to just name some players, and you just tell me one word that just fits their description. Okay? So,
well, don't say anything in one word. It might be 2 or 3, but I'll do my best.
Do your best. You're a long life learner. Ian Rush.
Quality.
John Aldridge.
Ian Rush clone. They even look alike.
Bruce Grobbelaar.
Crazy.
In what way?
Well, when Bruce was in a war in Zimbabwe, in Rhodesia, and he climbs mountains and he fights elephants and he wrestles crocodiles, Bruce is a crazy guy. He does crazy things, yeah.
Peter Beardsley, the man who didn't drink.
Selfless.
Graham Taylor.
There's not one word that could sum up Graham Taylor. He's the most influential man in my footballing life. My father's the most influential man in my life, but Graham Taylor is the most influential for a young boy. So there's not one word that can sum him up. He was just fantastic.
Sir Alex Ferguson.
Tough.
King Kenny Dalglish.
Well, it's difficult to sum up Kenny in one word as well. Loyal.
Very loyal. Gary Lineker.
A lazy finisher between the two. Because Gary will score a lot of goals, but he won't run around too much.
And finally, a spicy one. Manchester United.
Lucky.
Look, John, it's been a very, very insightful discussion. I feel like it's a coffee shop conversation with friends. It's great to see you again, my friend. I really missed our time in the Fox Sports studios, but anytime you want to come and just share with us, not just about football, but about life, please just give me a call or WhatsApp. I'll happily have you back on Sunday Learnings. On behalf of the production team and all our viewers out there, thanks so much for being with us. And you stay safe, my friend. And
Thank you. And I hope to come to KL very soon, and I'll look you up when I get over to KL.
Definitely, I'll owe you one big meal, and we'll go to a non-rowdy pub.
All the best. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Take care.
Okay.